Hello there, welcome to Planet America. I'm John Barron.
I'm Chaz Licciardello.
Just 4 weeks to go till the election, and as hurricanes batter the United States, a storm of misinformation is reaching Category 5.
Yes, and the political climate is making it worse. But first...
Millions of Americans are in the path of a second major hurricane in as many weeks. This one, Hurricane Milton, bearing down on the west coast of Florida, and it's even got the experts worried.
It's just an incredible hurricane. It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific.
That's veteran meteorologist John Morales. This is already being seen as the worst storm in the region in a century. Milton expected to create a 12-foot storm surge and dump up to 15 inches of rain. That is close to 400 millimetres, a lot of rain. But still only half of the record falls in North Carolina last week during Hurricane Helene. Close to 31 inches of rain, wind gusts over 100 miles an hour, that's 170 kilometres an hour. The death toll from Helene has already passed 230, the majority of them in North Carolina, particularly in the mountainous region inland, making it the second deadliest mainland American storm after Hurricane Katrina 19 years ago. Former President Trump, meanwhile, has been trying to criticise the response from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, and link it to other hot-button political issues with claims like this.
People are dying in North Carolina. They're dying all over those 5-6 states. They're dying, and they're getting no help from our federal government because they have no money, because their money's been spent on people that should not be in our country. They stole the FEMA money just like they stole it from a bank so they could give it to their illegal immigrants that they want to have vote for them this season.
So, did Biden and Harris steal money from FEMA to give to illegal immigrants so they would vote for Democrats? No. First, the easy bit. Illegal immigrants, non-citizens, cannot vote in either federal, state or most local elections. And it's not a quick process. Even once you have lawfully been admitted as a permanent resident, you have that status with a green card, it can still take 5 years or longer if that asylum claim is involved in the process. It's going to take another 5 years on top of that to get citizenship and be able to vote. So nobody who has arrived since Biden became president has become a citizen and can vote. But even if they can't vote, are illegal immigrants being given FEMA money that is actually meant for natural disasters? No, they're not. FEMA's Shelter and Services program gives grants to local governments and non-profits to take care of undocumented migrants. That much is true. Congress has allocated $650 million to the program for things like hotels, food and transportation. Now, $650 million is not nothing, but it was always for undocumented migrant services. It wasn't stolen, as FEMA points out on its website.
Disaster relief fund money has not been diverted to other non-disaster related efforts.
Nevertheless, Homeland Security Secretary Alexandra Mayorkas, who has oversight of FEMA, has been sounding the alarm about a lack of money for disaster relief.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds, FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
And it was those comments that were reported this way on X-Twitter by the Murdoch-owned New York Post.
Feds say there's no money left to respond to hurricanes after FEMA used $640.9 million this year on migrants.
And then they upped the ante.
FEMA spent $1.4 billion on migrants.
And those misleading headlines helped to set off this damaging falsehood. It rolled all the way into a Trump rally. And, Chaz, it's malarkey.
That it is. The irony of all this is that Trump himself did politicise disaster relief. According to his Senior Director for Resilience Policy on the National Security Council, at least, his name is Mark Harvey. Harvey said that back in 2019, Trump refused to approve disaster aid for California because of the state's Democratic leanings. Harvey said Trump only changed his mind after he pulled the voting results of Orange County and showed Trump that Orange County had more Trump supporters than the entire state of Idaho. Not only that, but Trump also actually drained the FEMA disaster fund to pay for immigration policy, the exact thing he's accusing Biden of. In the middle of the 2019 hurricane season, Trump took $155 million from the FEMA disaster fund to pay for immigration detention space. Trump justified it at the time by saying that America was facing a security and humanitarian crisis on the southern border. Sure. So there is plenty of hypocrisy going around here. John.
Sure is.
But are there real critiques of the federal response? Honestly, it's hard to know because there's so much misinformation out there. Like, for instance, a huge number of AI-generated photos being sent around to prove just how bad Biden's doing. Oh, poor little fictional dog, look at him. Oh. Some people have reached back to 2022 to an old FEMA PowerPoint presentation to prove that FEMA's top priority right now is apparently wokeness. Interestingly, if we look at the next graphic down on that PowerPoint right there, climate resilience is exactly what North Carolina could have done with right now. The reason this flood is so damaging is because the inland areas are so rarely flooded and they weren't prepared. Only 2.4% of homes in the areas hit by Helene are estimated to have flood insurance, which is part of the reason this is going to be so expensive. Having said that, there are definitely signs of some issues with FEMA. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp noticed this.
When the first emergency declarations came down, there was only 11 counties in that. A lot of people were outraged, including me, because there was such devastation in up to 90 counties.
And Biden wasn't exactly reassuring at the end of last week.
What do the states in the storm zone need, Mr. President?
Okay.
What do the states in the storm zone, what do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm you're talking about. They're getting everything they need. They're very happy across the board.
I'm not sure everyone's very happy across the board. Still, FEMA is certainly doing its thing, with over 7,000 federal staff joining the 6,100 National Guardsmen to support the rebuilding. There have been some coordination issues though, like for instance, even a few days after Biden activated 1,000 Army soldiers for deployment, North Carolina had still not requested their support because it was still assessing the needs of the area. And there's also definitely a reasonable critique of an administration that's currently rushing out Starlink satellite internet systems to these isolated areas, when back in 2020, Elon Musk had a contract with the government to supply Starlinks to 640,000 rural homes at less than $1,400 a link up, which is super cheap by the way, including in this area, but the administration cancelled the contract. Had they not, 19,500 homes and businesses in the affected areas would already have internet access. So look, it's not like FEMA's perfect, but it's so hard to get a handle on what's going on right now and what people are doing right and wrong with the amount of garbage that's just floating around everywhere, John.
Yeah, more garbage on the internet than there is in some of those flooded lakes in North Carolina. For more, earlier we spoke to Brian Riedl. He's a budget expert at the Manhattan Institute. He's a former advisor on several Republican campaigns, including Marco Rubio in 2016. This was his take on the FEMA budget row.
Donald Trump is flat wrong. FEMA's disaster relief fund just received $20 billion 2 weeks ago as part of a continuing resolution, which should last until November when Congress returns. If Congress budgeted for FEMA annually, if they budgeted for disaster relief, they would look like they're spending more money and increasing the deficit. So in order to make themselves look more fiscally responsible, they wait until after a big disaster and send the money later. This is cynical budgeting at its finest in Washington.
Former President Trump returned to Butler in the crucial swing state of Pennsylvania this week for a rally at the scene of his shooting there in July. Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, accused Democrats of inciting that assassination attempt.
First, they tried to silence him. When that didn't work, they tried to bankrupt him. When that didn't work, they tried to jail him. And with all the hatred they have spewed at President Trump, it was only a matter of time before somebody tried to kill him.
Trump's son Eric went even further, seeming to suggest some kind of far left-wing conspiracy.
They tried to pull him off the ballot in Colorado. They tried to pull him off the ballot
in Maine. And it has not worked. And then, guys, they tried to kill him. They tried to kill him.
Meanwhile, Trump spoke of his gratitude to the Secret Service, police and first responders. He paid tribute to his supporter, Corey Comprator, who was killed during that shooting. And then Trump, too, raised the possibility that Democrats were behind the violence.
Over the past 8 years, those who want to stop us from achieving this future have slandered me, impeached me, indicted me, tried to throw me off the ballot, and who knows, maybe even tried to kill me. But I've never stopped fighting for you, and I never will. Never will.
Quite an allegation, even if he couched it with a maybe. A reminder, for the record, the FBI is still to establish a motive behind the July attack, but they say they do not believe the 20-year-old who opened fire on Trump was motivated by a specific political ideology. Investigators say that his search history included queries related to both Mr. Trump and President Biden, and that he looked at a number of events and targets, and that his profile more closely resembles that of a mass shooter than a politically motivated assassin. Oh, and it's probably worth JD, Eric and former President Trump remembering the fact that the gunman was a registered Republican. Also at the Trump rally, Tesla founder Elon Musk, wearing a black Make America Great Again cap and an Occupy Mars t-shirt. Musk was in an ebullient mood as he jumped around the stage, then extolled the virtues of Trump and free speech before urging Trump supporters to register to vote, then making a grim prediction.
Text people now. Now. Oh, and then make sure they actually do vote. If they don't, this will be the last election. That's my prediction.
You probably shouldn't get all this information from Twitter, John. Musk also tried to push people to register to vote because his super PAC is now largely responsible for Trump's voter outreach. And he has come up with some interesting tactics, like offering people $47 cash for every registered swing state voter who signs a petition. Now, people are suggesting he's buying votes there, but he isn't. He's buying people's details so he can spam them. But not the most cost-effective idea, you'd have to say, John.
Yeah, we'll see about that. A bit reminiscent of Doug Burgum back in the primaries, buying donors. For more on the storm of misinformation that is engulfing this campaign season, I spoke earlier to journalist Mike Rothschild. He's an expert on conspiracy theories, author of books including Jewish Space Lasers and The Storm Is Upon Us. So tell me, Mike, why do you think it is? There's a lot of misinformation out there, particularly on the internet. Why is it that some catches on and some doesn't? What does it take to effectively generate and spread misinformation?
Well, misinformation and disinformation are always going to occur when you have a large-scale upheaval. So something like a pandemic, or in this case, something like a hurricane. People are looking for answers. People are looking for villains and someone to blame for what's going on and who did this to them. In terms of the specific disinformation that we've been seeing lately, a lot of it has been spread on social media, particularly X, formerly Twitter, and it's being spread by accounts that people have come to trust. So influencers in the far right space, people who are fairly well known for spreading these things around. It really helps to have some sort of a picture or a video. Even if the picture is clearly fake, it doesn't really matter. You're not looking for accuracy, you're looking for outrage.
So, Mike, you didn't name names there, but is it fair to say that Twitter owner Elon Musk can now be considered the spreader-in-chief of mis and disinformation?
Well, since it became his site, he really has put his stamp on the spread of things that are not true, conspiracy theories, rumors, hoaxes, oftentimes him just replying to something with a word like concerning or an exclamation mark emoji. That's really enough to make something go viral. And again, it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. He's not checking it. People who follow him aren't checking it. It's really just all about outrage and shock value and anger.
Mike, how complicit are consumers of misinformation? Good factual information is available for those that want it, yet many people choose to believe some dude in a basement who says only Democrats are getting hurricane aid. Is there an active choice when we believe that stuff?
Well, I think a lot of us really do want to believe. That's why these theories are so compelling. It's not like they have, vast reams of evidence behind them. Most of them barely have any. It's that we want them to be true. They conform with things that we already think. They look at our enemies as all powerful and being able to do anything they want to do. And we want to believe that we are so important that those enemies will come after us if we get in their way. So a lot of this has to do with simple motivation and wanting these things to be true. And unfortunately, many of us do become complicit in spreading rumors, even if we don't have ill intent. We see a picture, we see a meme, and it feels like it's true. It plays into the things that we already believe, and we hit share on it, not because we think it's true, but because it made us mad and we wanted somebody else to be mad about it.
More broadly, Mike, some have suggested that misinformation is spread basically because there is now a lack of faith in government and institutions. Others have pointed to the fact that with declining rates of religiosity, people are kind of filling in the blanks, the vacuum in their worldview with a kind of conspiracy theory that becomes their way of understanding things around them. What's your view?
I think it's all of those things. I think it is a distrust in government, in media, in science, in doctors. Certainly that drove so much of what was going on during the pandemic. I do think it is a loss of faith. I think it's a fundamental loneliness. I think a lot of people are isolated. They don't really understand things anymore. Things have just changed so much. You're looking for certainty and you're looking for a reason why things are happening and where you fit into the world. And I think whereas people may have gotten that at work, may have gotten that at church, they may have gotten it at clubs, a lot of those things have closed. So they look for it online and they find these once siloed communities where they can now connect with anybody all over the world as long as you just believe the same things.
I don't know, Mike, but 30 or 40 years ago, it's possible that there were politicians who believed that the moon landing was faked and that Elvis was still alive, but they kept it to themselves, probably quite wisely. But that's now changed. People like Donald Trump and others openly flirt with ridiculous conspiracy theories. Why has that changed?
Well, Donald Trump really rose to political prominence not because of his policies or his views on taxes or foreign wars, but because he was a conspiracy theorist. He was openly saying Barack Obama was not born in the United States. He was openly saying that Chief Justice Antonin Scalia of the Supreme Court was murdered with a pillow. These are things that people have felt for a long time, but a lot of these believers never had anyone in politics who was really representing them, who was willing to say those things that they talked about. Trump really tapped into that movement of people who believed things but felt like nobody respected them. People thought they were a joke or crazy. So Trump really tapped into that movement and made it his own. And now he really is the conspiracy theorist in chief. So many of the conspiracy theories that we've been seeing with the extreme weather, with the assassination attempt, this has come straight from him. This is not starting at the very bottom of the internet. This isn't starting in pamphlets or obscure message boards. It's starting with one of the most well-known people in the world. And when it's starting there, it's very, very difficult to contain that.
Mike Rothschild, thank you very much indeed for joining us on Planet America.
Thank you.
Back in Washington, and President Joe Biden appeared unannounced in the White House press briefing room for the first time in his presidency. In fact, there were audible gasps from reporters when the president entered the room.
Hey, folks. My name's Joe Biden.
Welcome, Mr. President.
We've been waiting for you.
They probably read on the internet that he died months ago. Biden was actually there to take a bit of a victory lap, announcing a deal to end a dock workers' strike that had threatened to damage the United States economy, and a much better than expected jobs report, in excess of 250,000 jobs added to the US economy in the month of August. Biden was also asked about the upcoming election and whether he thinks it'll be free and fair and whether it will be peaceful.
Two separate questions. I'm confident it'll be free and fair. I don't know whether it will be peaceful. The things that Trump has said and the things that he said last time out when he didn't like the outcome of the election were very dangerous.
So we are seeing some fairly ominous signs right now, Chaz.
Yeah, he's a real downer. But back to the jobs report, though. Even Fox News acknowledged this one.
So the September jobs report is out as of 90 minutes ago. Came in hotter than expected. Good number, high number, 254,000 jobs added. Unemployment ticked down to 4.1%.
And there's not one data point in here that I can point to that's not good.
How annoying.
He sure tried. Economist Mark Zandi said the economy is about as good as it gets. It's at full employment with strong wage growth and low and stable inflation. Although Trump is, well, less optimistic.
With 4 more years of Kamala, you'll have a 1929 style depression. That's sort of the ultimate depression.
Looks like Trump's suffering the ultimate depression in that clip. He certainly wouldn't be enjoying economic polling recently. According to the Cook report, Trump's lead on who voters trust to handle the economy is down to only 5 points. And that's for dealing with inflation, which is the biggest issue in this election. Back in August, voters gave Trump a 6-point lead, but now Trump and Harris are tied. If Harris can wipe out Trump's lead on the economy, John, that would take away his greatest weapon, unless this is all too late to change people's mind on the economy.
Yeah, certainly could be the case.
We shall see. But one of the tightest election races is in the battleground state of Pennsylvania, where they produce a lot of gas, and so the issue of fracking is divisive. Both Trump and Harris claim they're not going to ban fracking, but Trump is on the attack.
Kamala Harris pushed the far-left Green New Deal. That means huge new taxes, increased utility bills, and banning gas cars.
That's why I am committed to passing a Green New Deal and finally putting an end to fracking once and for all.
Kamala just don't give a frack.
Kamala's fracking ban would kill jobs and raise gas prices. Kamala doesn't give a frack about you. Only President Trump will bring back Trump's strong economy.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Jimmy Fallon, get the hell out of our political ads. Here is Melina Wicks to explain why fracking is getting so much attention.
There's a word we keep hearing this election.
Fracking, fracking, fracking.
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 So strange why we just keep talking about fracking.
Sorry. Fracking is a process for extracting oil and natural gas that has opened up vast reserves in the US. So why is everyone talking about it? The second largest producer of natural gas in the US is Pennsylvania, expected to be the most important swing state in this election. The biggest producer is Texas, but they're not a swing state, so no one cares. Under the Biden administration, the US has become the largest oil and gas producer in the history of the world, and fracking is a big part of that. But Trump keeps insisting Kamala Harris wants to ban it, and he has some measured economic analysis of the consequences that would bring.
If they get in, your state is screwed. Your state is, you guys are screwed. Good luck, everybody.
At least he said good luck. So just how important is fracking to Pennsylvania? A 2022 report from the Pennsylvania government put the total number of direct jobs from gas and petroleum in the state at around 40,000. Meanwhile, they put the clean energy labor market at nearly 95,000 jobs, which no one in the presidential race seems very interested in talking about. Fracking tends to have a weird effect on Democrats. Harris was against it, and then she was for it. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman was against it, and then he was for it. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is an enthusiastic supporter of fracking. But this is what he was saying about the health effects back in 2019.
Some homeowners started feeling nauseous and dizzy. Their eyes, nose, and skin and throat would burn, they testified. They got persistent nosebleeds.
Horrifying. They should check if it affects people's memory too, because the Shapiro of today seems to have forgotten all about that. The way Democrats panic the moment they try to impress a Pennsylvanian, you'd think fracking was hugely popular there. But even in Pennsylvania, it's a divisive issue, with a recent poll showing 53% in favor and 47% opposed. Maybe that's because more than a third of Pennsylvanians live in counties with shale wells, so the economic benefits and the environmental and health consequences are very real. Fracking is talked about so much, you'd think it was the most important issue in the election. But there's a little problem with that.
Almost all the fracking in Pennsylvania is on private land, so Harris could not ban it even if she wanted to.
Presidents can't ban fracking on state or private land, where nearly all of the fracking happens. So this whole debate is really about nothing. You know, John Fetterman may be onto something.
So strange why we just keep talking about fracking.
Former Republican Representative Liz Cheney backed up last month's endorsement of Kamala Harris this weekend with a speech at a Harris rally in the swing state of Wisconsin. And this was her message to her fellow Republicans.
I ask you to stand in truth, to reject the depraved cruelty of Donald Trump. I tell you, I have never voted for a Democrat, but this year I am proudly casting my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris.
Significantly, Liz Cheney was speaking in the town of Ripon, Wisconsin, which is known as the birthplace of the Republican Party.
Yeah, although I think Republicans were probably more interested in this message from Liz Cheney back in 2020. Kamala Harris's radical leftist views, raising taxes, banning gun sales, taxpayer dollars for abortion and illegal immigrant health care would be devastating for America. Look, obviously we can have some fun with the old quotes, but I actually think the fact that Liz Cheney is clearly no fan of Harris's policies but is still supporting her makes her broader message seem more effective, potentially.
Yeah, you can make that argument for sure. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris stepped up her media campaign this week after many weeks of criticisms that she was hiding from interviews. The Veep has been targeting less traditional outlets like the popular podcast Call Her Daddy, where they were talking a lot about reproductive rights.
When he was president, hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did just as he intended, and there are now 20 states with Trump abortion bans.
This is quite the blitz as well. The Vice President has also appeared this week on 60 Minutes, on Stephen Colbert's Late Show, on Howard Stern's radio show, and on TV again on The View. While her running mate, Tim Walz, maybe got the short straw. He got Fox News, where he was forced again to defend earlier comments about his military service when he said he was in a war rather than in wartime.
I have never disparaged someone else in this, but I know that's not what Donald Trump does. They disparage everyone, the personal attacks. I will own up when I misspeak. I will own up when I make a mistake.
So he says, but that is not exactly true. Walz does fudge around an awful lot when confronted with his past exaggerations, Chaz.
Yeah, I'm yet to hear a straight answer on those misstatements. But look, that was a much tougher interview than Walz has had to do until now. His biggest media appearance in the weeks leading up to the debate was when he showed up on We Rate Dogs with Scout there.
Oh, what a good boy.
He's a very good boy. That was the scoop. And there has been some pushback against all these podcasts that Harris and Walz have been doing lately. Donald Trump Jr. got all stroppy about Call Her Daddy, writing, "Americans are dying, and this is how the sitting vice president is spending her time." Well, let's face it, Americans are often dying, and this is how all the candidates are promoting themselves these days, with the podcasts. Trump has embarrassed himself on podcasts recently as well. Welcome to 2024, I guess. This is campaigning. But something that is more serious is the second major union after the Teamsters a couple of weeks ago has now refused to endorse Kamala Harris. The Firefighters Union Board narrowly voted to not endorse anybody this year rather than endorse Kamala Harris. And this is noteworthy because they were one of the first unions to endorse Biden in 2020. And their farewell message to Biden when he dropped out was almost hero worship. They called him undoubtedly the greatest president firefighters and emergency medical workers have ever had. And they said they would be forever in his debt. So that's a bit of a tone shift to Kamala Harris. Now, I should say that the Firefighters Union has endorsed every modern Democrat other than Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton.
Bit of a pattern there.
Yeah, some have suggested there might be the whiff of sexism there, but the fact is there have been a lot of concerns about Harris's ability to compete for the white working class vote against Trump, and they are a key group in this election, and this here is only going to increase those concerns.
Yes, indeed. And that is it for another trip to Planet America. We'll be strapping in and taking off again at the same time next week.
And we have a Fireside Chat on ABC News on Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and both shows are on ABC, iView, YouTube and Facebook. See you there.
Bye.